These old hacks made Grandpa's life easier, and you don't know a single one of them. He solved all his problems with rice or a cork. And the best part? Many of these brilliant hacks work better than ever today, and you're not using them. Stay tuned, because one of them saves you real money, daily. If you want to discover more brilliant Grandpa hacks, subscribe now and get started. Rice against rust in toolboxes. In the old shed, it smelled of oil, iron, and rice. Grandpa filled it into fabric bags and placed them between pliers and screwdrivers. The rice drew the moisture from the air, protecting the tools from rust. A silent helper, proven for generations. Simple, effective, born from real household wisdom. Attach screws magnetically to the drill. Grandpa often tinkered on the latter, with one screw in his mouth, another in his hand, the drill balanced on his knee, until one day he stuck a small magnet to the handle. Suddenly, the screws stuck directly to the device, always within reach. No more searching, no more dropping, just zap, in it goes. A hand movement that made work easier. Today it's called smart. Back then it was just called clever. And this hack, it still works exactly like back then, better than any third hand. Clean aluminum with charcoal. When Grandpa's aluminum pot became dull and spotted, he didn't reach for expensive products. He took a piece of charcoal. With it, he rubbed patiently over the metal until it shone again. Charcoal, he said, is nature's best abrasive. Fine enough not to scratch anything, but strong enough to loosen any dirt. Simple, clean, genius. It worked on pots, bike parts, window handles, and anyone who tries it once wonders why they ever spent money on cleaners. Linseed oil against dried-out wooden handles. When the wooden handle was rough, cracked, dull, Grandpa fetched the linseed oil. He rubbed it into the wood with his hand, slowly, thoughtfully. Hours later, the grip was supple again, darker in tone, almost like new. The wood came to life, literally breathing. It lasted longer, didn't splinter, felt better in the hand. A drop of care that works for decades. That's how it was done back then. Not replace, but preserve. And that's exactly why it still works today. Remove waterproof marker with erasable whiteboard marker. Grandpa never scolded when someone drew on the fridge door with the wrong pen. He simply got the whiteboard marker, drew a second line over the first, wiped over it. Gone. A simple hack that hardly anyone knows today. The whiteboard marker dissolves the permanent ink. Both stick together, can be removed together. Quick, clean, without scratches. Works on glass, plastic, metal. And every time I do it, I think, Grandpa would have acknowledged it with a nod again. Polish silver with toothpaste. When the silver cutlery became dull, Grandpa knew exactly what to do. He took a soft cloth, rubbed off the black layer, let it sit briefly, rinsed, and the silver shone like new. The paste, he said, has just enough power to loosen dirt without scratching the metal. A hack from the time when home remedies counted more than brands. And every time it sparkles again, a piece of it lives on. Baking soda and vinegar for drains. When the drain gurgled, Grandpa took baking soda and vinegar. It hissed, bubbled, dissolved fat and soap deep in the pipe, then hot water, and everything was clear. 2 kitchen ingredients, strong as a team, quiet, reliable, effective. An old hack that stays because it works, and without fuss. Wax paper for faucet surfaces. After washing up, Grandpa took a piece of wax paper and rubbed it over the faucet. Not for fun, but because he knew what the wax in the paper does. It seals the metal, lets water bead off, and slows down limescale and streaks. Fingerprints hardly stick. The faucet shines longer, feels smoother, and looks freshly cleaned. A simple hand movement with great effect. From the kitchen straight to the bathroom. And another hack that quietly but effectively does its job. Fog-free mirror with raw potato. When the bathroom mirror fogged up after showering, Grandpa didn't reach for a cloth. He cut a raw potato in half and rubbed the cut surface over the glass. A thin film remained, almost invisible but effective. The starch settled on the mirror and kept the water vapor away. The view stayed clear, even if the room was full of steam. Then a dry cloth, polish once, done. An old hack, quiet and clever. and unbeatable to this day when it needs to be quick. Clean grout with baking soda and hydrogen peroxide. When dirt settled deep in the grout, Grandpa didn't get a special product from the cabinet. He mixed baking soda with hydrogen peroxide, stirred a paste, and applied it with a toothbrush. It hissed quietly as the deposit began to loosen. A few minutes to soak, then scrub, rinse, wipe dry. The grout looked like new, bright, clean, almost freshly grouted. No big deal, but effective. 2 simple ingredients, a clear effect. That's how cleaning was done back then, and sometimes you wonder why we've forgotten it today. Aluminum foil against tarnish on cutlery. Grandpa placed a piece of aluminum foil in the cutlery drawer, quite naturally. He knew what it did. The foil attracted the tarnish before the silver discolored. A silent guardian in the darkness of the drawer. Nothing shone as beautifully as the cutlery at Sunday roast, because it was cared for, not just cleaned. The foil often lasted for months, and if the silver did become dull, it went briefly into warm water with some baking soda, again with foil, and the shine was back, old-fashioned maybe, but effective to this day. Descale coffee machine with vinegar. When the coffee ran slowly and tasted stale, Grandpa didn't reach for the expensive descaling tube. He took vinegar, a splash of it, diluted with water, he poured into the tank. Then he let the machine run. Once through, then pause. Wait 10 minutes for the lime scale to soften. Then he rinsed thoroughly. 2, 3 cycles with clear water. The effect was noticeable. The machine ran smoothly again. The coffee tasted like back at the kitchen table. That's how he kept his appliances alive. Simple, effective, with what was in the cabinet. Newspaper for window cleaning instead of cloth. Grandpa didn't take cloths, but newspaper. Crumpled, routinely guided, it made the window clear like a spring day. The printer's ink polished, the paper absorbed. What carried news in the morning ensured shine in the evening. Simple, effective, almost poetic. And every time I feel him, quiet, approving, in the background. Doorknobs as coat hooks. When a coat rack was needed, Grandpa didn't take a cheap hook from the hardware store. He reached into his box of old doorknobs, porcelain, wood, sometimes metal. Each had history, each was unique. He screwed them onto a board, hung it on the wall. Done was the coat rack, sturdy, beautiful, unmistakable. Each knob carried a jacket, a bag, sometimes the dog leash hook, and whoever came by stopped briefly and looked, because there wasn't just something hanging, but something telling a story, quiet, practical, full of character. That's how Grandpa built order in the hallway. Tape as drilling template. When Grandpa hung pictures, he didn't reach for a laser. He took a piece of painter's tape. He stuck it on the back of the frame, marked the drill holes with a pen, peeled off the tape and applied it to the wall, straight, calm, with a steady gaze. He drilled the holes through the marks in the tape, then the dowel, then the hook, then the picture, and everything fit on the first try. No guessing or aligning with the level, just a simple hack that worked. Quiet, precise, and with a piece of tape. Secure suction cup with dish soap. When the suction cup didn't hold, Grandpa didn't take a new one. He rubbed a hint of dish soap on the back, very thin, almost invisible. Then he pressed it onto the tile, calm and with force. The effect was astonishing. Suddenly the thing stuck fast, for days, where nothing held before. The dish soap filled the tiniest unevennesses and ensured real vacuum. A drop was enough to solve the problem. Simple, quiet, effective. That's exactly how he did it. And when something doesn't stick today, I know immediately what to do. Ketchup and salt for copper. When the copper became dull, Grandpa didn't stand in front of the shelf with expensive products. He took ketchup from the kitchen, sprinkled some salt over it, and rubbed the mixture in circular motions. The acid in the ketchup dissolved the deposit. The salt helped. A few minutes later, the shine was back. Warm water, dry rub, done. The pot looked like new. So simple, so effective. And every time you marvel at how much power is in things that are actually meant for dinner. A kitchen hack you don't forget. Ice cubes and iron against dents in wood. When the table had a dent, Grandpa didn't reach for sandpaper. He got a damp cloth, placed it on the spot, and put the hot iron on it. With a steady hand, he ran over it. The heat penetrated, the water evaporated, the wood began to swell. Slowly, the depression lifted, almost by itself. The fibers straightened up, completely without force. A hand movement that brought back lost volume. Quiet, effective, clever, and every time the wood looked afterward as if nothing had happened. Cup bottom for sharpening knives. Grandpa sat at the kitchen table, in front of him a dull knife and an upside-down coffee cup. The bottom was rough, unglazed, exactly what he needed. With a steady hand, he pulled the blade at the right angle over the cup rim, first right, then left, alternating always, not hastily, but concentrated. The sound was quiet, scratching, almost meditative. Afterward, the knife cut through the tomato like through warm butter. So simple sharpness can be if you know where it's hidden. Wine corks under wobbly furniture legs. When a chair wobbled, Grandpa didn't reach for the toolbox. He got an old wine cork, cut off a slice, and pushed it under the too short leg. Didn't fit on the first try, so he cut more. Millimeter by millimeter, until the piece of furniture stood like a one again. The cork cushioned, balanced, and stayed where it should. Invisible, but effective. So simply, he solved it. And the cork got a second life. Quiet, practical, a bit genius. Carry plywood better with rope loop. Grandpa took a rope, placed it under the plywood sheet, pulled the loop over his shoulder, and carried the bulky thing like a bag. The load distributed, the back stayed straight. No dragging, no bending, just a clever solution. Quiet and efficient. That's how he went through the whole house. Wrap bacon around poultry for juicy roast. When Grandpa roasted poultry, he wrapped bacon around it, not as decor, but as a hack. The bacon protected the meat, kept the heat in check, and slowly released its fat. It seeped into the skin, penetrated the meat, made the leg juicy, the breast tender. Outside, a golden layer formed. Inside, everything stayed soft. The aroma went into every fiber. He fixed the slices with a toothpick, pushed the sheet into the oven, and waited. What came out wasn't a roast. That was experience, cast in fat and heat. Metal coffee maker for boiling water while camping. When Grandpa needed hot water while tenting, he didn't get a pot. He placed the old percolator directly on the fire. Without insert, just filled with water. The flame crept up the metal, evenly, powerfully. After a few minutes, it bubbled inside. The handle was hot, the cast precise. Tea, soup, washing up. Everything started with this pot. It was robust, simple, reliable. And it belonged to camping like firewood and the folding chair. Anyone who wanted to live outside didn't need much. Just things that do what they're supposed to. Like this kettle, vinegar against odors in the fridge. When the fridge smelled funny, Grandpa didn't get scent plugs. He placed a small bowl with vinegar inside. Quiet, unobtrusive, but effective. The vinegar drew the odors from the air, decomposed what stank, and left nothing but freshness. Sometimes he took a cloth, mixed vinegar with water, and wiped the walls with it. The glass clinked when putting back. The smell disappeared. That's how he kept the fridge clean. Not by covering up, but by attention. A bowl of vinegar was enough. No more was needed to create order. Lemon for cleaning cutting board. When the cutting board smelled of onion, Grandpa reached for the lemon. Half was enough. He rubbed the board vigorously, let the juice work, let the acid creep into the grooves. It dissolved what had set in, neutralized the odor, brightened the wood. For particularly stubborn spots, he sprinkled some salt beforehand. Then he rinsed everything with warm water and placed it in the sun. The lemon cleaned thoroughly and gently, and the board was ready again for the next cut. Fresh, clear, clean, like taken from the drawer. Dish soap against grease films on tiles over the stove. A fine film settled over time. Invisible at first, then sticky, then gray. Grandpa didn't take a special cleaner. He filled warm water into a bowl, added a squirt of dish soap, dipped a cloth in, and wiped the tiles. Once over, and the grease dissolved. The shine came back, the haze disappeared. Then clear water, dry wipe, done. It wasn't loud, not elaborate, but effective. A drop was enough. And the kitchen smelled of soap and cleanliness again. That's how it worked, back then and today. Desiccant for seed storage. Grandpa dried seeds on newspaper, filled them into jars, and added a desiccant packet. The small beads kept moisture away. The seeds stayed viable. No mold, no spoilage. Year after year, beans and carrots waited patiently for spring. A hack that preserved great things, clever and forward-thinking. Water and flour as natural envelope glue. When Grandpa wanted to seal a letter and the glue was missing, he simply stirred flour with water. A spoon, a sip, a few vigorous turns. Done was the envelope glue. He spread the paste with his finger on the edge, folded the paper, and pressed it firm. After a short time, everything held bomb-proof, without solvents, without plastic bottle, just with what was in the cabinet anyway. The glue was soft when applying, hard in the result, and every time a quiet proof of how far you can get with little, if you know how. Pool noodle as faucet extension. Grandpa stood at the sink, saw the boy stretching, not reaching the water, and got a pool noodle. Cut it open, stuck it over the faucet, directed the stream forward. Couldn't be simpler. The foam led the water where small hands could reach. Safe, soft, immediately usable. Anyone who fills watering cans outside or gives children independence understands the value of this idea, from toy to everyday help, and from one grip and relief that lasts. To this day, mark keys with paint or nail polish. Grandpa had a system for everything, even for his keys. Each got a color dab. Red was the garden shed, blue the cellar, yellow the workshop. A dab of nail polish was enough, directly on the grip, cleanly applied, let dry briefly, done. No searching or trying around. One grip, one click. Sometimes he painted patterns on the flat surfaces, stripes, dots, depending on mood. It not only looked pretty, it helped. And today, where every key looks the same, this little idea seems almost revolutionary. Color as a memory aid. Quiet, practical, durable. Like so much from back then. Ice cubes in the dryer against wrinkled clothes. The old laundry cabinet smelled of lavender and order. Grandpa never needed an iron. Just a few ice cubes and the dryer. 2 pieces were enough. The drum turned. The steam smoothed what was wrinkled before. While outside the wood cracked, inside the shirt became wearable again. No effort, just an idea born from observation. Water evaporates. Fibers relax. Anyone who has seen it once won't forget it. Next time you're under time pressure, throw in a few ice cubes. The rest takes care of itself. Freeze sponge for ice pack. Grandpa would have laughed himself silly over all the expensive cooling pads today. He simply took a wet sponge, put it in a bag, and placed it in the freezer. Done was the ice pack that didn't drip and still adapted to every bump like a tailored suit. During soccer playing, during nettle accident, or after hammering on the thumb, this little hack was always on hand. Practical, cheap, and reusable. Anyone who tries it once asks why it's not standard yet. Pure simple house logic. Phone holder with cable ties. 2 cable ties, 1 grip, and the phone stands like nailed down. Grandpa would have celebrated that. Back then, you built something like that from wire or wood scraps. Today, a few sturdy ties do it. One forms the backrest, the other becomes the support surface. A bit adjusted, bent, done is the holder. Ideal when cooking, screwing, or just wanting to watch a video in peace. Simple, practical, genius. That's how it was thought back then. You didn't ask what was missing, but what you could make out of it. Save small parts with nylon stocking and vacuum cleaner. When a tiny screw is missing again or an earring rolls under the dresser, a hack from Grandpa's toolbox comes into play. Simply stretch an old nylon stocking over the vacuum nozzle, secure with a rubber band, and off goes the search. The suction pulls the small part in, but the stocking holds it fast before it disappears in the bag. Genius simple, immediately at hand. That's how improvisation was done back then, with sense, not with expensive accessories. And that's exactly what makes such tricks so timelessly useful. Almost a little rescue unit for lost things. Distribute mulch with buckets. Grandpa didn't need a wheelbarrow when distributing mulch. He simply took a few buckets, filled them with bark pieces or grass clippings, and carried them directly to the beds. Tip buckets, distribute, smooth. That went quick, even on narrow paths and between young plants. Every hand movement fit, everything in view, everything under control. That's how work was done before garden centers made everything complicated. Simple, thought out, tested. And that's exactly why it still works today. Quiet, efficient, down to earth. Newspaper as weed barrier under mulch. When the soil was prepared, Grandpa first reached for the newspaper. Layer by layer, he laid it out, overlapping, neatly, almost reverently. The paper prevented weeds from sprouting, let water through, and protected the soil from drying out. On top came the mulch, evenly distributed, with a steady hand. The newspaper decomposed slowly, nourishing the soil and creating a quiet foundation for growth. That's how old paper became a garden hack that has worked over generations. Simple, effective, down to earth. A piece of everyday logic that deserves its place to this day. Sponge and flower pot against drying out. Grandpa knew that plants don't scream when they're thirsty. That's why he placed a damp sponge at the bottom of the flower pot before the soil went on. Quiet, unobtrusive, but effective. The sponge soaked up when watering and slowly released the water again, so the roots stayed moist longer, even if the sun burned or watering was missed. Simply done, easily explained. And that's exactly why it works to this day, quiet and reliable, like the best helpers. Pot and pot for easy repotting. Grandpa had a method for repotting that was as simple as it was genius. He took 2 clay pots of the same size. One he pressed into the fresh soil and pulled it out again. Left behind was a perfectly shaped planting hole. Then he placed the planted pot ball exactly in this depression, without squeezing, without poking around. The roots lay like cast. Everything fit, everything sat. That's how repotting became child's play. Clean, quick, precise. A hack from a time when you still worked with head and hands. And you can tell. Treat snow shovel with car wax. Before the first snow fell, Grandpa reached for the wax cloth. The snow shovel got a fine layer of wax, carefully distributed, almost like a winter ritual. Afterward, the snow slid off by itself. Every swing fit. Everything ran lightly from the hand. Nothing disturbed the rhythm. Everything flowed. That's how snow shoveling became a quiet art. Prepared, thought out, effective. If you're thinking now, I want more of that, then subscribe to the channel. The next hacks are already waiting, tried and true, everyday useful, and surprisingly practical. Stay tuned and do it like Grandpa. Simple, clever, effective.